Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7 News Israel. I'm Amir Oren, covering in for the traveling Jonathan Hessen, and this is our almost daily news update. Israel no longer at war, but maybe soon a resumption of hostilities, which is going to be our topic today, with our two Air Force Brigadier Generals, retired Brigadier General Relik Shafir, a former fighter pilot with a distinguished career. General Shafir, welcome.
Hello, and thank you for having me on the show today.
Thank you, Relik. And another distinguished career, which is still ongoing with Reserve Brigadier General Doron Gavish, formerly the commander of Israel's air and missile defense. General Gavish, welcome.
Thank you, Amir. It is always great to be here.
It's our pleasure and honor with you too, Doron. So, you know, both of you gentlemen have spent many years in the Israeli Defense Forces, and the current Chief of Staff of the IDF, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, published last week an unclassified summary of his guidance to the force. Obviously, there are more classified details which he goes into only for internal consumption. But General Zamir wanted everyone, civilians included, to know what his priorities are. And top of his list, obviously because of October the 7th, 2023, is to brace for a surprise attack. Now, General Shafir, you commanded the Tel Nof Air Base, which at the time was the most important and central of the Israel Air Force's bases. How can you keep readiness for a long time? It's very easy to say, be alert, be always on watch, but when you have to maintain such readiness, how do you go about it without your troops becoming impatient and complacent?
This is an easy question or query for the Air Force, because the Air Force is concentrated in air bases, almost all of it. I'm not talking about the air defense, but fighter airplanes, helicopters, transport, etc. The difference between complacent day-to-day to wartime and the ability to move from a regular readiness to a wartime is very small, because there are always airplanes loaded up and ready to go. There's always pilots who are ready to take off within 5 minutes if it's fighter aircraft, and about 10 minutes if it's helicopters. And so let's say we wanted to have a higher alert, then we could have more pilots and more airplanes loaded up and ready to go. But so I think it's not really relevant for the Air Force. Reason being that the Air Force can bring munition very fast to anywhere within Israel, certainly, but also within the Middle East. But the question is about the targets. The Air Force is not at will. Anything around the borders to make decisions on what is a target and what is not, that is the ground forces or the intelligence. So once we know where, let's say, an incursion takes place, moving the munition via pilots and aircraft, or even UAVs to that point, can be done very fast. So as far as the Air Force structure and readiness level, this is not a problem. So I would say that closer relations between Israeli intelligence, I mean IDF intelligence and Air Force intelligence, and maybe the Shabak, to let the Air Force know what is brewing under the table, so to speak, would be the best answer to this, because this could be translated into the Air Force knowing where the center of gravity is or where things are about to happen. So I would say that this is a point to take. Other points are in the future about the force mix within the Air Force, but that is a different question.
But there is obviously a difference between the dawn to dusk workday during weekdays and what happens at night. One of your predecessors at Tel Nof, late Major General Gior Arom, used to conduct what he called the Kingdom of the Night inspections to find out what is happening on base. And as we have unfortunately found out, during holidays or Sabbath, as happened on Yom Kippur Day 1973, and then the last day of Sukkot 2023, there is less readiness. So how do you keep up the vigil during those off hours?
Well, what you said was true maybe 30 years ago, but today most of the airplanes, certainly the F-16s and F-35s, um, use an F-15Is, can fly at night with almost the same effectiveness as during the day. So that has not been a problem. It might be a problem with that you just mentioned with the small number of attack helicopters, the Apaches, on October 7th, where the base went into, I would say, a holiday and left a minimum number of pilots on board. And that could be changed within a minute, and I think it has already changed. So the force structure is very flexible, and there's no real difference between night and day. It's the mindset that has to change and has changed of the other systems of connecting with the intelligence in the military to understand when to lower or elevate the readiness, but not the airplane and fighters readiness, which you could are always at hand, but rather the understanding of where the center of gravity was, which was the actual problem on October 7th. So I would conclude that being on a higher alert within the Air Force, I'm talking about the bases themselves, are not difficult to elevate, but unfortunately within other systems, it is more difficult, and maybe we'll discuss that later.
So, General Gavish, in your command, the air and missile defense, obviously, if it's a missile incoming from afar, from Iran or from Yemen, there are several minutes to get ready. But if it's short range, it's a matter sometimes of seconds. So how do you keep alert at all times in your batteries and in your information center, command and control, etc.?
Yeah, but allow me a little bit to add. I think what Eyal Zamir, the commander of the Israeli IDF, when he talked about surprise, he means that what are we doing beyond being ready with the exact orders and times and so on. Because when you are being surprised, and this is what we've seen in the 7th of October, we were ready. But we were ready to a certain concept. And the question is not, are you ready to a certain concept? And here, maybe I a bit disagree with my colleague here, because it's not that the Air Force he have its orders, and now he would be doing something according to the orders. When it's a surprise attack, you need to go out of the box. You need sometimes to do things differently. You need to go out of the commanders, of the command that you were given, and doing something differently. You have to sometimes do some of the things that needs to be done on a personal basis. You are in the fly, and you need to do something different from what you were expecting to do, and so on. So I think, first of all, being in a surprise situation, it's a different mindset from doing what you know to do because you have your orders and you're doing everything according to your orders. This is the first thing that I think that this is what Eyal Zamir is expecting from everyone, to go to go and think out of the box during a crisis time. And how do you behave? Of course, it's a military have its own frameworks and so on. But I think this is the main thing. So this is first of all for the attack operations, but then we have to remember that all the organizations which are operating in the IDF, including the Air Force, including, of course, the air defense within the Air Force, and I would say everyone, including the civilians here in Israel, you have to prepare them. You have to prepare them to survivability mode, and when things are coming immediately, this is something different. Also, we have to remember that different from the past, today, we are the targets. The Air Force bases are the targets. The air defense assets are the targets. So this is also something that needs to be taken in consideration. And how do you behave toward? So it is not only the attack operation, it's the attack operation, it's the defense operation, it's the survivability operations, it's the state of mind of the people. Now, how do you do it? You do it when you're the way of doing it, of course, training your people that in situations like this, you surprise them. You surprise your own people. You don't tell them something before that we are going to have an exercise. You just do it. So there is all kind of means, of course, the commanders use and military use in order to be ready. Part of it is as I said, the surprise exercises and things in this nature. The last thing that I would say with regard to the air defense is the first one to deploy and the last one to redeploy. Or to go back to its bases. And of course, in the situation that we are now, the Israeli air defense is fully deployed end to end, and we are not yet in a peace mode. We are ready for all the options that could come. Exactly as you said, some of them in a very, very short time, and the air defense have to be ready for it from short range, from long range, and from medium range.
General Gavish, the Israeli Defense Forces are built on career officers, as you two were, non-commissioned officers, sometimes in maintenance or other positions, draftees, people who are conscripts, and reserve soldiers. So how do you prepare this mix for a possible surprise?
Yeah, this is a very good question, Amir, because reserves, for example, they are part of the defense of Israel. So one of the questions that you ask yourself, how could I make sure that all the reserve forces are deployed in a very rapid pace, different from maybe the way it was in the past? So this is one of the main questions that the IDF now is looking at, is how to bring everyone in a very quick pace and still to do it in an organized way. Because we have to remember that a reservist, when he goes into his military service, there is a process that he have to go through it. So how do you make it much more efficient, much more quick? And this is for sure one of the main questions that the IDF is going to look at and to improve itself according to the lesson learned from 7th of October.
General Shafir, General Gavish earlier talked about thinking and acting out of the box. But the box is military discipline. It's the routine simulation and training, and in your case, Air Force regulations. And while you should always follow the commander's intent, you are also expected to do what you are told. How do you know when to improvise, and how low in the chain of command, down to the individual pilot or to the flight commander, can you take the liberty to deviate from your instructions?
This is I would say, the million-dollar question. Once the pilot is in the air, in the vicinity of his target, he is the kingmaker, meaning that he can make decisions. Let's say he's supposed to attack a certain target and he sees that the target is not there. It could be a ground-to-ground missile, and he can actually use, let's say, an F-35 is the best example. He can scan the area of where the target is supposed to be and fight it in a different place. And so he's at will to change the target and understand that the idea is to destroy as many missiles as possible. Maybe a missile that is already erected and ready to fire is more important, it takes a priority over a depot or something like that. So in that, the pilot has full latitude. And we train the pilots by making changes or I would say hiding the actual happening on the ground. So he has to make those decisions during training, and then we check out whether he made the right decision in the blur of the fight and the chaos of the fight. The difficulties arise when we're talking about the border area where you don't really know where your forces are and where the enemy's forces are. So in the old days, you wouldn't really be able to discern who is the enemy and who to bomb. And there had been many cases that we know, starting from the Second World War up to the war in Gaza, where pilots had made a mistake due to different reasons and bombed the wrong target. But let's think about technology. An F-35 can tell where the turrets of the tanks are pointing. Are they pointing eastward or westward? And he sees an array of tanks, and he can tell by understanding the war on the ground who is who. So, and also there are targeting pods that allow you to see from afar what is happening on the ground, whether it's day or night, in a much better manner. So having that kind of technology allows the pilot more latitude in making decisions if the chaos in the battle is such that he's not able to get precise information. So that kind of information allows the pilot to have the latitude it didn't have before. But still, when we are talking about a ground warfare of infantry, it's almost impossible. And at that time, the pilot should take caution so as not to create a disaster by bombing our own forces. So the pilots need to learn the ground forces limitations, the way they work, and talk more and understand Clausewitz, I would say. We're talking about 1830, I think, when he wrote on war, and be more understanding of what goes on the ground when you can make the exception and think out of the box and go for the right target, and when to take caution that could be a mistake in real time, but you would know it only afterwards, and not creating a disaster for your own forces.
Either General Clausewitz or his wife, as some modern versions have it, perhaps a feminist version. General Gavish, let's project this uncertainty, which General Shafir has talked about, into your realm, air and missile defense. Here, of course, the dilemma is whether to fire two missiles, sometimes, at great cost to the taxpayers, but be more certain at destroying your target, a missile, let's say, about to obliterate, as Trump says, a civilian target in Israel, or let it go and save a few 100,000 shekels. Whose authority is it to make such a decision?
Well, Amir, I will answer it, but let me add to the discussion that we had before, is that we have to remember that Air Force. It's right that the fixed wings are a very important part of it, but it is not only fixed wings. We have to remember that Air Force, it's a lot of UAVs. Today's Air Force, it's a lot of helicopters and so on. So when we are talking about surprise situation within the Air Force, it is much wider than the one pilot and the airplane. It is really a system of systems, I would say, that the Air Force is operating. And in this, we have to remember that as a lesson learned of the last war, the Air Force, and this was announced, it is not a secret, the Air Force decided that he is taking control of the very short part of the borders, which is different from the position that we were before. And also the Air Force even designated a new branch that this is what it is doing, and this is what it is focusing in. So there's a lot of lesson learned that needs to be done, mainly for surprise attacks. I just wanted to add this part because this is what currently is happening in the Air Force. And going back to your question, this is a decision that is pre-made. Of course, which are the areas that are being defended? Yes, no. This is a decision that goes to the highest level in the IDF, sometimes even behind it. That you decide which are the areas that you would allow the missiles to fall down, or the question is always being asked, what does it mean an open area, and exactly how do you designate open area? Of course, we cannot talk about it here, but I could tell you a short story. When we integrated the Iron Dome into the defense of Israel, which was in 2011 for the first time, this was one of the first questions, because we have to remember that the Israeli Air Force DNA is, if it flies, it dies. If something penetrates the airspace of Israel, you intercept it. And here we are in a position which is a completely different one, that we allow targets to fall in the Israeli space or in the Israeli area. And this is something that we cannot take lightly. It's a very heavy decision. And the reason, of course, it's that you don't want to waste your ammunition against a target that is not really threatening and important places for your defense. It could be strategic ones, bases, or civilians. Of course, I would start with the civilians and then the military installation. So decision is being made. It's a pre-made decision. It's an IDF, Air Force, Home Front Command decision. There's a lot of course, considerations in order to make this specific decision. And in real time, like everything in the Air Force is being centralized. There is a centralized control that could make decisions in real time. And the last one who can make a decision. Again, in the DNA of the Air Force, this is the leader, either the pilot who is leading a group of airplanes, either the one who is flying the choppers, the UAVs, and same in the air defense, the one who is sitting on the ground and making the last decision. If he sees something, it is also in his authority to make the decision if he's going to shoot, yes or no, how many and when.
Final point in less than a minute, General Shafir. It's a war of wits. It's a war between intellects too. The very fact of publicizing your preparedness also shows your weak point, because a previous chief of staff, Aviv Kochavi, told the public and not only the military to prepare, first of all, for missile and rocket attacks, and then for counterattacks by Israel into dense urban areas across the border. But that means that when Hamas shot all of its missiles and rockets, Israel did not prepare for a ground raid. So in 20 seconds, is there any way around this problem?
Yes, I think if we think about the North, we were aware that Hezbollah were planning a raid, and I think a lot of focus on the October 7th was towards the North, where this was expected. And the forces were a lot more ready in the North than they were in the South. So the answer is more surprise exercises, more out of the box thinking through, red teams that challenge the ordinary thoughts. And red teams have proven themselves to be very worthy when preparing the blue forces into changing the thinking mode. So this should be undertaken, and I know that it is undertaken.
So it all comes down to the old Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts motto, be prepared. Thank you very much for your contribution today, General Relik Shafir, General Doron Gavish, and we will be back with another update from TV7 News Israel early next week. For the time being, shalom from Jerusalem.